So all of these things aren't true in this case. And I do recommend as people get started, and you're always trying to meet people where they are, right?
Right.
That you tap into that 5-year-old, because that in many cases is pre-criticism of when we stop thinking we are creative and artistic. Truth is we always are, but by societal standards and what makes Western modern society work, a lot of that gets pushed. But it's so helpful for people to tap into that 5-year-old artist. I talk about it all the time, and I use so intentionally words like play.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 118 of Toward a Better Life, the podcast featuring like-minded people sharing their stories, ideas, and activities on what we can do to generate a better life individually and collectively. As I've been mentioning lately, in today's world, there are truly many needs to seek balance, harmony, compassion, kindness on so many levels, personally, culturally, spiritually, to name a few, but it all begins with each one of us as individuals to create a better life. That's what I like to share on this podcast from around the world, seeking others of the same spirit, heart, and mind. And this is a platform, a school, if you will, a venue to begin and continue that journey to one's wholeness and harmony. I also offer the opportunity for you to share your prose, your music, poetry, and storytelling to the show, and thanks so much for those of you that have contributed. I really do appreciate it, and it kind of brings us all together as community. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't done so already through your favorite podcast platform, and keep following for weekly magical insights into earth-based spirituality, self-development, and self-care. Also, remember to support the show by leaving your review on Apple and Spotify podcast. It only takes a minute to leave that review. And visit my website if you would, towardabetterlife.com. You can find all kinds of cool stuff there, blogs and everything, and more tools to help you on your journey. You can also contact me to learn more about a free discovery call to help you personally on your own journey. I'm here for you. Send all your inquiries to me, Kevin at towardabetterlife.com. In this episode, I welcome Susan Hensley. And Susan is a transformational coach, speaker, and author dedicated to helping people navigate life's transitions with joy, creativity, and resilience. She's got decades of experience as a corporate executive and leadership coach, but Susan has a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities that come with major life changes that face us. And there's a kind of unique term here, drawing, and you'll hear more about that, but drawing on her extensive background in HR, coaching, and journalism. Susan's mission is to empower people to unlock their inner creativity, their inner wisdom, and sense of play during times of uncertainty and change. Through workshops, speaking engagements, and one-on-one coaching, she guides clients to rediscover their authentic selves and infuse their lives with more color, more meaning, and, of course, joy. So, on with this week's chat. Today, I want to welcome Susan Hensley to the program. Good morning, Susan, over there in Texas. How are you?
Oh, good morning. I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm fantastic as well. Had my, before we got recording, everyone, I was sharing with Susan that I sat out in my grove this morning and I just listened to the birds, and it's beautiful. So, everyone, we're going to have a wonderful opportunity here, because what Susan likes to work with is art journaling. And, she mentions that I think you have a book out, the author of Art for Your Sanity. I love it. So tell us a little bit about Susan and what you do as far as the art journaling stuff is concerned.
Sure. So the art journaling, quite honestly, started for me about 7 years ago. And I was working in a corporate job when I stumbled into it, but I was doing a lot of executive and career coaching. And one of the big things, if you live in that space, that's super important, is to encourage people to pay attention to what lights them up, like glimmers, right? I mean, you were talking about the birds, and yeah, before we started recording, we both enjoy listening, being really thoughtful, and hearing bird sound. I know for me, that connection, that moment with nature and life and the pulse of life fills me for much longer than the moment. It brings me into the present, but it's a glimmer for me. It's something I try and get more of in my life. It doesn't mean it's a career when you find these glimmers, but it's something if I'm working with a person who's trying to add more joy, more contentment, more presence. You look for those small things. The long story, I meant to tell the short story, but you're getting the slightly longer version, but
Oh,
I'm going
you
to
that's fine.
of art journaling is I was in a big corporate job. Didn't view myself as doing any art. Don't view myself now as particularly artistic. Coworker had a whole side hustle. Very good artist. Some of us are saying, we can't draw. She goes, come over on a Saturday. I'll teach you guys a few things. Go over for an hour. She's a friend, and I'm with, women friends, and I'm in the corner playing with these paints, just making a big old, it ended up being brown because I didn't wait for any of the paints to dry, and that's what happens when you don't wait for any paint to dry, you end up largely with brown. But I loved it. It was like I am 5 again, and instead of big corporate job, and that was a glimmer for me. I took it home, hung it on the refrigerator. My family's like, wow. They just let it go because they know me. But I then kept playing with art. Fast forward like 7 years through this, just playing. This is not about producing anything other than that original one that hung on the refrigerator. It's in a journal form. It is about creativity. It is about processing emotions. It's about release. It's scribbling. It's messy, right? It's a outlet that I was just doing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I'm working with it, I realize this darn thing that's just an outlet is talking back to me. It's tapping into my inner wisdom in the way I'm a meditator. Well, you and I sort of talked about that. I have deep beliefs, but it's playful and it's fun and it's telling me, like, quit your job. Not in those words, but it's like, take the leap, do something else. Anyways, the long story, and we'll talk more about this. I ended up leaving a job I loved, had been in 23 years. I had every intention of staying there for a number of reasons, at least 5 to 7 more years. It's like, no, my heart, everything I know about life transitions and coaching, it's time now. It's not my timetable, right? It's a bit of what my inner wisdom's telling me my timetable is. And so I took that leap, and then I ended up writing a book, something I never thought I would do, about art journaling, something I never intended to share because it was my practice. I mean, my friends knew it, my family knew it. And then, as life will have it, workshops, and it's a really big part of my life coaching and speaking as people emerge from the pandemic more tightly wound and our environment so intense, that need for play and release, or drawing little screaming faces on a page of paper with a crayon. When you're using play, it's all less scary. It's all more approachable. It's contained, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, my turn.
Your turn. That's how I started art journaling.
But
I
but
wove a lot of things there. I went very riff. I'm not a musician, but I went very jazz on you there. Sorry.
no, 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 no. That this story is about you. It's about Susan. It's not about Kevin. Everybody knows Kevin that listens to the program, more or less. But when I have a vision of art journaling, I almost see like a, oh, well, I mean, here I'm holding it up for Susan, but there's my journal. And
Fantastic.
it's got a lot of words in it. And
Yeah.
so I have visions of art journaling as actually somewhere in here there are some sketches. I'm not an artist. I write with I play with words. And yet I've done a couple of oil paintings, and yes, I have, and so forth, but I don't consider myself an artist. I have to work at something like that. So that's what I'm seeing is art journaling, is you're actually drawing something on a piece of paper, maybe in a journal.
Yeah. Or collaging. So I keep, once again, who knows who's watching. So I keep a written journal, right,
Okay.
with words. I use colors now, but I'm going to grab the book prop. What art
Okay.
journal is, same thing. This is not my art journal. It's pictures from it. But when I started playing with it, it was the same size. It was collage. It was water paint. It's messy. It's child's play. It's processing. So it's doing the same thing you may do with a written journal, since we're using props, but playing with art in it. And it's just for you. I don't identify. I mean, I just showed you two images. And the reason I put them in the book, which was at the moment I realized I had to, was to show the low barrier. This is not about actually creating and something's going to hang on the wall.
Right.
It could be. It's about, just like you don't put your journal pages, you don't immediately publish it. You may take a thread or hang them all around. The playing with art is a very visual representation of what you're doing in your journal. And why it was different for me, at least, although writing can be a right brain activity and it's creative and flow, in our society, which is so left brain, so logical, so linear, people who keep journals can get a lot of shoulds. Most of my journal entries say the date and even my location. I travel a lot. If I do some gratitude thing, it's a list. And I find that playing with art or color or scribbling really keeps me in that right brain, which is that really deep, holistic, integrated, much more spiritual place. It shoots me over there, almost like taking, if I'm standing in front of you, it's almost like taking one step to the right. It's
Okay.
that immediate, which for me is why that hit that day I was at that workshop that I'm in the corner playing and making this mess. I could feel that immediate move over versus my friends talking about the color. I actually remember she was trying to talk about opposing colors in the color wheel. And I think I was supposed to put two opposing colors on the page, right? Supposed to. Instead, I'm mashing them around and creating a beautiful mess.
Creating and creating a mess in whose perspective? That's definitely a subjective statement.
Well, and you know what's so great? I
Uh,
talk so much about perfectionism,
mhm.
and I try and recover every day from
Mm.
that.
There's a good way of putting it is to recover from perfection. And
Yeah.
that's doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive for the best. It means be more accepting with what we do in our natural selves. And don't be so hypercritical on ourselves that we miss the beauty. That we're so left-brained we can't get into our right brain, you know?
Yeah, gosh, I love the way you said that, because what you so captured right there was, it was, the mess is subjective, but the mess is what unlocks it. Because as a person who's constantly becoming more and more aware of the voice, the inner critic, and observing it, not even making it bad or mad, it doesn't go away, but if I can observe it, I can make thoughtful choices and stay present,
Hmm.
right? That
Yes.
inner critic has served a purpose. It's kept me safe, but it's not needed every single moment. It's certainly not needed when I'm playing in an art journal with mess. And yet it's that ability to make something that the left side of my brain may look and say, that's like a mess. That's like a five, and say yes with the other side of me, my soul part, and say, yes, it is, because play and what you may call mess is fantastic, right? That's what I feel like through the art journal helps me be more whole or centered, or at least more balanced, because in such a left brain society where we want competence. We want people around. I want to be competent. And I also want to be very whole and not ruled by that.
So I was reading this morning that when we're talking about complexities and we're talking about messes and we're talking about stuff like that, and I have to tell you, Susan, that I got a real wake-up call. I've had a book on my shelf for years. That's terrible. And it has not been read in years. It's terrible. I finally picked it up because I put some other stuff aside and I said, you know what? I want to read this book. And everyone's going to go, really? You waited that long? The Secret Life of Plants. And it's by Peter Tompkins and Christopher Bird. And it is an incredible book. It was written in 1972. And it talked about, I'm just going to read it off the front of this thing. It's a fascinating account of the physical, emotional, and spiritual relations between plants and man. All I did was read the introduction this morning in my little private time that I do. And oh my gosh, when you talk about complexity and we talk about perceptions of complexity, and if you look at the root systems and you look at the mycelium and everything else involved with plants, and they communicate with each other, and what we see is a as a ball of roots, it's really the whole digestive system and it's the whole living organism of that plant. It's part of it. We only see what's above. You don't see what's below and we don't see what's inside going on with that plant. Because if we did, we might see it as, oh my gosh, this is a mess of weeds, or my gosh, this is just, whatever. I'm gonna yank that thing out of the ground because it doesn't belong there. It's interrupting my lawn. Don't even get me going.
I won't.
But the perception that I'm trying to bring across, Susan, is how we talk about the messy stuff, and it is relative. And it's very subjective because if you just take a moment and look at the miracle of the magic that's there in the plant life and the magic that's there with the work that you do with art journaling, and so what if the word, or if not the word, but if the artwork maybe looked like something that we did in, I don't know, first grade, kindergarten, second grade, does it really matter? And no, it doesn't, because you were in that moment when you were doing it, and it brings in all sorts of emotions. It brings all sorts of creativity. And I'm going to be quiet for a minute because I could go on. This is about you.
No, I agree with you. And I love what you said about plants. I haven't read the book, but plants, studying any component of nature, but like really gazing at, could be a leaf, a flower, something, and paying attention that the connections and beauty you see in it. Once again, it's we talked a little bit about the birds when we started, and so I'm how this ties to art journaling is it's those moments. It's those moments of awe, right? That's what we're talking about with the birds, with the plants. Like you're talking, I'm thinking about aspen forest, and it's all one
Mm,
tree. And you're
yeah.
like, that blows my mind, and it makes everything a miracle, right? There's that quote, either like nothing's a miracle, everything's a miracle. I think it's attributed to Albert Einstein. And you can choose to view life
Hmm.
as everything is a miracle. Now, with that, living a human experience here at this time, right, doesn't mean everything's perfect and doesn't mean everything's easy and doesn't mean we're always our best. And that's where I think having tools, art journaling practices, whatever they are, can help us. I'm guessing your listeners, given the very nature of your podcast and you, are all looking for more holistic, integrated, thoughtful, intentional, right, beings, right? We're beings on this planet with nature and energy at this time.
Hmm.
Is that fair?
That's, yeah.
So all of these things aren't true in this case. And I do recommend as people get started, and you're always trying to meet people where they are, right?
Right.
That you tap into that 5-year-old, because that in many cases is pre-criticism of when we stop thinking we are creative and artistic. Truth is we always are, but by societal standards, and what makes Western modern society work, a lot of that gets pushed. But it's so helpful for people to tap into that 5-year-old artist. I talk about all the time, and I use so intentionally words like play
Hmm.
and make a mess because it frees folks. Even though mess is subjective, most folks aren't living where you are,
Mm-mm.
right?
Right.
And I'm working with people, and I can certainly resemble this, who are struggling with anxiety and frustration and uncertainty. And so it's all about tools to help through transitions and acceptance of mess, and actually creating 5 minutes a day to be bad at something. Once again, bad and good are just constructs. But they mean something in modern world and they mean something to each of us. And trying to get under that in the clients I work with, family is really important. And permission to be bad, to make a mess when we're always trying to follow rules, so important.
It is. And let's go a little deeper on something because it's probably second nature to you. But when you have somebody who's really anxious, they're really dealing with anxiety, or they're on, I'm just going to say on versus off, type A personality, or everything is go, 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 go. Forget the 100%. It's 187.555% of the time, and that's only from second to second. And they have tension and they have all this stuff. How do you take someone like that and settle them down long enough to create an art journal?
So I've actually had folks like that in a workshop. I ended up doing a workshop in the middle of a strategic planning session. Well, I did not put it there. It was like the entertainment after lunch, but people were working, their bosses were there. They're doing 5-year planning. So interesting. This is what I do. One, just meet them where they are. So separate everyone, gave them crayons and a piece of paper about 5 by 7. I said, here's what we're going to do. You get choose 2 crayons right now. I don't care. Just choose 2. So I gave them a constraint. I put on a song for 3 minutes. I very intentionally chose, could be any song, but I chose Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. So I chose a song that's fast, popular, loud, but is saying, shake it off. So I said, here's what you're going to do. And they all wanted to follow a rule and be good, right?
Hmm.
Corporate thing. Spread them out, 2 crayons, 1 page. You have 3 minutes. I gave them an instruction, right? So they've got something they need to accomplish. These are people who want to accomplish. 3 minutes, you'll know when time's up, the song will end. I want you to take your 2 crayons and fill that page. I don't care how you fill it. You can draw a million flowers, you can scribble, you can do whatever, but just fill the page. We're going to take 1 deep breath, only one. I mean, I'm going to make you take 3 deep breaths. We're just going to, and I put on the song. 3 minutes go by. They don't want to stop. I stop. It's like, you must stop. Put down those crayons. you know, Put down those crayons. And I do a debrief. And the vast majority who chose to participate, because the debrief is, how do you feel? Free. That was 3 minutes. That felt so much longer. That felt so much shorter. That was so fun, silly. And I mean, 3 minutes. And they switched. And it was the combination music, words that were right. Whether you're a Taylor Swift fan doesn't matter. The words she was singing were like, okay, let it go, let it go. A really big constraint and really clear, only 2 colors. I gave them all a 24 pack of crayons, but no, just choose 2. So they're not getting paralyzed. And that permission, it wasn't draw me one doodle. It was fill a page. And the constraint of 3 minutes really, and we weren't going to show anyone. So the immediate debrief, and back to your question, how do you take it? Because they would all say, if you say it just gets busier, or if I'm a 10, I'm an 11, right? These are the people who always add one number. And you're like, well, it's just 10. It ends at 10. No, it's an 11, right? Kind of thing. That 3-minute exercise was such a great release. And it was a more impactful release than I want you all to take 10 deep breaths because their nervous systems were so wired. I felt like they needed multiple, many cases, senses to help move into the moment.
So you made the play. You made them play.
Yeah.
That was the mindset. You didn't tell them that. I'm going to make you play, but that's what you did.
Yeah.
And by doing so, you opened up their creativity and you silenced the inner critic all at once. Three
All at
minutes.
3 minutes.
And I tell people a lot in the work that I do, I have a few videos out and I'll pick on one. It's called the 8-piece brocade. If you take the 8-piece brocade, which is based on Qigong, which is sort of related to Tai Chi, um, you could probably get a litany of varieties of the 8-piece brocade. but the key point is once you become proficient in the eight-piece brocade and you do each movement two sets of that movement, you can go through the whole thing in less than 10 minutes.
Mm.
And the thing I tell people is, do you have 10 minutes a day that you can devote to taking care of your body? So, do you have 3 minutes a day that you could have fun with crayons and a journal just let go and wait for the miracle to take place? Because if it's what I suspect, and just tell me if it is, if it's what I suspect, that it's very similar to what we would do in some journey work, that's spiritual journey work or deep meditation, we click off the left entirely. We're really into our right side and we're really compassionate. We're really emotional. We're really in there and we're connected with our inner self. Some little truths are going to come out and it's going to be in a form of a drawing. It may be the worst looking lion you ever saw in your life, but to you, it's a lion. That's like asking a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old who's been given some crayons, what is that? What's you and mom? Okay, that's great. And don't, I'm just going to say it, don't criticize them because it ain't pretty, because to them, it's a work of art, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You know, you touched on so many things because there's a universality in all these tools. And you're right. It is about tapping into the insights that are accessible through
mhm.
the right side of our brain. And just as there's so many different people out there in different states, there's different paths that resonate in, because then once you are in and you understand what you're doing, you tend to find the best paths for you. But yeah, my pitch, if you will, to type A really driven people is that 3 minutes in crayons. And why crayons are so impactful is as an adult, I've yet to meet an adult since I've been doing this who is holding two crayons and has a lot of expectations. Their inner critic goes away, right? So there's actually a real beauty in using the materials that children use because it very quickly minimizes your adult expectations. Whereas sometimes, you know, you can go to a yoga practice, or you can be doing a practice around it, and you can start to compare yourself, right? It's also the reason at this corporate retreat, I spread people out to try and eliminate comparison, right? So I was using everything I could to kick people over to
Mhm.
the right side, and then to debrief, to have them really think about how they felt. And then what I appreciate you said, because everything about when I teach art journaling or my online course and the book is about then self-compassion, some self-acceptance for what comes up, some, if I call it proud parent or proud teacher, like you admire what you did.
Mhm.
And that hopefully, right, what you're trying to do is starting to create a cycle of a pleasurable experience that isn't a should, it's a I want to
Okay.
kick over here because I felt peace, joy, release, right?
And that kind of mindset that you're working toward by being playful and the creativity, you start to see when I'm going to use the term that I'm looking at right here, or the thought, embracing that imperfection and creativity, because in doing so, you start to create personal transformation. Yeah. And that's magic. And all we got to do is do it. And I keep going back, my head keeps going back to look what you accomplished, Susan, in 3 minutes. And it's a miracle. There's that word again. It's magic because
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's mystical. There's a good one for you. There, and all this stuff's been around for thousands of years. If we
Thousand
just
years.
settle in and just enjoy it.
Yeah. It's not new. We're just living in a time that has been so shut off
Yep.
from it that it feels like new and magic, which if in a different time, a different place, it was way of life.
Mm-hmm.
But in this moment, in this place, it does, it feels, which is then great, right? Once again, because of trying to help people at least be aware of perfectionism and that cannot be, may not be healthy, right? And I'm, once again, it's what is, how do we have healthy integration between both sides of our brain in our modern society, in our
Mm-hmm.
modern lives? And where I believe most people just need so much more time in their right brain to get a little more
Yeah,
balance.
we do.
Yeah.
I had a guest on not too long ago, and she's been on a couple of times, but it's Amanda Scott. Amanda is, she was a veterinarian from basically, I believe, from Scotland. Amanda, if you're listening and it's not Scotland, I apologize. But she's written some really interesting books. She did a series on Boudica, who was basically a warrior who drove the Romans out of what we now know as England in the tens of the first 100 years. So around AD 35 to AD 65, she was beating the crap out of people. So what am I going to? I'm telling you that one of the things that Manda moved into was a term that she calls throughtopia. Now we know what dystopia is. We know what dystopian societies are. We know what utopia is and utopian societies, but you have two areas here. How do you get there? Throughtopia. You
Mm.
move from dystopia to utopia, but the transmission is throughtopia. And the Throughtopia, when I look at it, one of the things that Manda gets into is she talks about how, we need to engage in activities that are more holistic, more wholesome, more synchronous with the world around us, more sustainable with the world around us, instead of taking stuff away and not giving anything back. Tell me how this is certainly a great example of a Throughtopian exercise where we learn to bring back and cultivate a life of creativity and play. If that's
Yeah.
not Throughtopia, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, thank you for sharing the term with me. I'm gonna have to process it and look up the podcasts she's been on, but no, it absolutely is. And once again, I'm now busy processing that term. It's so interesting, even in what's been known from the ancient wisdom traditions from a number of different cultures, right? The what I call all the threads of truth.
Hmm. Yeah,
Presented differently based on, I believe, culture and time, right? You get variations, but there's threads of truth. That Throughtopia is such a great word to capture, if you will,
yeah,
those that, and it's not even threads of truth, it's just truth.
yeah, it is.
So I want to be careful there, but it can come at, as we study in modern times, it can feel disparate, like this from here, this from here. And it's sort of more all rather than threads.
Well, it's a statement that again, I'm looking at something here, and when we were talking at the beginning before we ever started recording, I said I typically don't like to get into some of this stuff as far as this is question number 67. But I also mentioned that when you wrote to me, you used a term, and I'm just going to read it here and let you take off with it because I think it's exactly what we're talking about at the moment. You wrote that I'd love to explore the connection between creativity and nature, mindfulness, and how simple, and this is it, how simple acts of creating can shift not only individual lives, but the collective energy of communities. And we talk about rebuilding communities. In Western North Carolina, we are rebuilding a community literally because of a hurricane. And we have a choice. We can wallow in the difficulty. And yes, I'm not discounting the fact that it's catastrophic. And yet, I've seen some of the latest news you were asking earlier on, Susan, about what's going on there. And I said, well, we're working on it and stuff. But you look at some of the creativity there and how people are bringing back and they're re-examining where they are to saying, I want to create something brand new. And it's because of a disaster And how often do we have a disaster in our life and we step back away from it and realize, hold on a second, I have an opportunity here to create something brand new. Isn't that what we're trying to do? And can't you see how you could create something, a thought, a brand new thought that you never thought of before, simply by art journaling? Okay, I'm going to be quiet.
Well, yes. No, you don't need to be quiet. It's a yes. So concept of a fractal are these repeating patterns throughout nature, right?
Hmm.
Small, but it repeats. It's huge. It's
Right.
the universe. You see them in
Hmm.
nature. A catastrophe, and we'll just play. We're speaking at a time where there's not only been the hurricane in Carolina, but the fires in LA have just happened. It's horrible, and I don't want to ever minimize suffering. What it creates, just like a life transition for one of us. So let's say an empty nest. You've become an empty nester, right? You
Hmm.
can put all these things. You can put natural disasters, and they're transitions, but they are opportunities and moments that if we're present and intentional, you have a choice to create something new, something better, something that I'm just going to use the word generative, something that will grow nature, communities, right? And think of how we talk about communities. Everyone wants their community to grow and thrive, right? And we talk about, dying towns sometimes when an industry has left. So it's such, the words we use for everything, we need to just be intentional when we have those moments of transition, whether it's after a natural disaster or a change in our life, a job change, a relationship change, a physical change, where there's moments of choice to think about, what do I put in this place? What do I want? I may not have chosen this. It may be very, very hard, but I'm here, I'm alive, I'm breathing. We're organisms, they're going to keep going. We just do. So I can be choiceful and try and put something new in, and something not just new, but better versus just rebuild as quickly as I can and do the same old thing.
Right. And that's it.
And
Don't
that's,
build the same old thing.
no.
How often do we see and how often do we hear stories of people that they get up and move because they can't function where they are? So they pick up and they move across country, another country, thousands of miles away. And they don't understand that after 6 months of being there, they're right back in the same mindset that they were. The culture is maybe different. The landscape is maybe different, but there's something that they haven't changed. And what haven't they changed, Susan?
Oh, themselves.
Right.
Yes, their intentionality, their behaviors. I mean, that's the hard work,
It
right?
is.
It is very hard. It's why, and I don't want to get into modern medicine, but so many cases, I was a health reporter many moons ago in a first career, and so many people, patients just want a pill to feel better. There's an easy answer.
Hmm.
The challenge is we're not here to have easy answers. We're here to grow.
Right.
And easy feels good, but I think anyone reflecting on their life recognizes we have challenges because they make us grow. Plants need to go through. We had a freeze, some frost, some wind, like some challenge to get deeper roots, to get more grounded. And if we grow and we're intentional and not just rebuilding the same thing, not falling into our patterns of maybe not being social. I've moved in the last few years, and it can be very easy to get isolated when you move. It's very, we tell ourselves stories. It's very hard to meet people or meet communities. And the truth is it can be, or it's been another whole story, which is it's actually very easy, but
Hmm.
you have to get over those moments of feeling uncomfortable.
Yep.
You
Hmm.
have to show up, and
Yes.
you have to keep showing up and telling yourself why you are showing up, right?
Yep.
For eventual friends.
Hmm. And I hear this a lot.
Yeah.
People will say, because I understand some herbal stuff, and they'll ask my advice about do you think, is there an herbal thing that I can take that'll help me with, I don't care, pick it out, pick out the issue, anxiety,
Yeah,
stress,
sleep, anxiety.
I
Yeah,
can't think right, all this make, isn't there, and it's just like you just said, isn't there a magic pill out there? The answer is no. And yet, when you engross yourself and engage in a process like this, like what you do, Susan, find something like that. That's what's so magical about the creative side. That's what's so magical. We talk about the bards in druidry. The bards were the creative ones.
yeah,
And that's a creative process. We're all bards. We all have that ability to create and to
absolutely.
look at art, and whether the art is done through poetry, through song, through works of art, through crayons and a 5x7 piece of paper for 3 minutes, whatever it is,
Yeah,
allow that to come out, because we can get so engrossed in this stuff of the left brain to try and go, go, go. We miss the magic and we miss our transformation, and we don't know why things haven't changed. It's because you haven't tried.
yeah.
That's simple. Or else you've tried and said, that's too hard.
Yeah. And I think that's what we need to be really aware of. When we are doing something that's hard or that scares us or pushes us, understanding the why.
Hmm.
And if you need to take it in smaller steps, this is just the human psychology, take it in a smaller step, get it to the smallest. It's why my first exercise we talked about is only 3 minutes. Trying to get it to the smallest step so that it doesn't become too hard or too scary actually helps you keep going. Sometimes we want to go from 0 to 50.
Hmm.
And in personal change and transformation, we hear about enlightenment moments. Those are rare, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's more one intentional habit after another in can be these very small steps that can be huge.
And what I thought was when you have those little small steps, one step at a time, every now and again, you will get the enlightenment because you've got your mindset into the sense of creativity. And that other side of your head, the magic comes in and you say, wow, I missed that, but I didn't. It's here.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, because you've built the muscle, right? You've prepped yourself. So what was a small step a month ago is actually now a much bigger step if you look at where you were. Yeah. And to your point, those flashes, you're prepared. I don't know, there's a famous business quote, I forget who, but it's like you got to look, it's like, no, it's when preparation's meeting opportunity, which is a very left brain thing, but it actually is the same for how we move ourselves through.
So you did something in 3 minutes and it just got in my brain. Um, there's a there's a Maine primitive skills school. It's in Maine.
Mm.
And there's some and I think it's Mike Douglas. He's been on the show too. But he has what he calls Earth Living One. In Earth Living One, you learn some of the basics. And in Earth Living One, you do learn how to make fire with sticks.
Yeah.
And here I was in my, let's just say I was over 50. And I understood how to do it. And I watched people do it. I watched him do it, and him being Mike. And I did the routine for those of you that are very familiar with it. I did the hand drill or the bow drill. And that's where you make a bow and you do your thing and poof, it starts a fire. But what you're really after there is you're after the little coal that you can create. And then you take that little coal, you drop it out of the object that you're doing the friction in, and you blow on it, and it's in a fire starter environment made up of different little bits and twigs and leaves and furry things, and no, not animals, people, furry little things. And you blow on it and poof, it turns into a fire. Well, I did this, and Mike told me he saw me do it, and he says I looked like a 5-year-old that just found a treasure. That's the
Yeah.
same thing that you're doing. You find the 5-year-old that found a treasure and say, this thing's ugly, but oh my gosh, look what I did in 3 minutes.
Absolutely. No, that's exactly it. It is, as a 5-year-old, you have wonder, you have joy, inner critic is not evolved, you're not like tracking time, and that sense of exploration and treasure, awe, right? All the things we've been talking about, you can just tap into them and refine to them because we all get that. Like we can describe it in children so intensely. When we
Hmm.
see it, someone else, we say it's like a 5-year-old. We don't say it's like a
52-year-old.
talented, mature 52, right? I mean, you don't say that because that's not a look of joy and wonder. And it's so sad that that's not. Think about that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I can tell you now, if you haven't figured it out by now, everybody and Susan, we can go on and on and on with this
We can, I'm
because
sure.
it's a beautiful dialogue, and that is just going back to the basics and remembering our foundation and looking and reclaiming the joy that's within us, the fun that's within us, the playfulness within us, the fostering of the joy, the resilience, the emotional balance, and all that stuff because we just let go. Just let go. I have a question. What does Susan do to create a better life for herself? There's one completely out of left field.
Yeah. So I do a few different things. I find for me one thing that works is to look at my life, as slices, and I try and create a better piece, and it works in different areas. What am I doing for my spiritual practices
Hmm.
every day? And this year, in my spiritual environment, I wanted to go to like 2-day long meditation retreats, right? And I've done that already. It was interesting because I set some things like where did I want to feel more growth this year, right? And although I'm a single being, it helps me to look at different areas and say, where have I felt maybe a little underserved, or where do I want to go deeper? And one of them was in my meditation practice
Mm.
and to do 2-day-long retreats really on peace and
Mm.
stillness with that
Okay.
that deep intention. So right now that's what I've been uh working on in my spiritual practice. I'm getting ready and it will have already aired. I will have done this by the time this airs. But I've always been a speaker, but I'm actually giving a TEDx talk coming up. And unlike in writing the book and other things, I sort of set a goal or a different goal for myself, which is how do I most authentically create something that's about service when so much of that talk can get wrapped up in the memorization, if you will. And so my intention, I'm playing with this, if the intention is service, which then is a clear message. How do I really bring that through? So I'm spending some time playing with what that looks like because I love this podcast and the naturalness of the discussion.
Mm.
But we've had time, and it's been two of us playing with, our minds and our hearts and the energy.
Hmm.
That 10-minute window I have is a very different window. And I'm doing it at this life stage because I want to be of service. And the
Mm.
message is all about, right? It's breaking from perfectionism. It is how do we shoot ourselves to that right brain and see the experience. So I'm really playing there. That was probably a lot more answer than you want, but those are the two things that as I've started this year are really sort of in my mind and heart.
Shoot yourself to creativity. That's that's it. That's wonderful. And if someone wanted to reach out to Susan, how do they go about doing that?
Easiest way is my website. There's a contact me button. I answer everything, and that's just susan-hensley.com. I try and keep it all simple. The book's there, videos are there, online course. There's other stuff there. But yeah, if you have a question, there's a free downloadable PDF. I don't fully spell out that 3-minute exercise I describe, but it's like, here's what you need to get started. There's tips. I try and keep everything about art journaling as low barrier as possible. Sometimes there's too many barriers for folks to try something.
Hmm. And your book is Art for Your Sanity. Do you have, is that your book? Do you have any other books or?
Yeah, no, that's my book. Yeah. Art for Your Sanity, how art journaling can help you manage chaos and unleash joy. It's the little, what comes after the Art for Your Sanity part that I particularly love. It's trying to unleash some joy.
There you go. And I think you're accomplishing that just by the mere discussion that we've had today, is finding the joy in all of this creativity. So this has been refreshing, Susan. I truly appreciate the time that you devoted to share with us today. And go draw something really cool from your 5-year-old brain.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Susan, for encouraging us all to bring more play and creativity to our lives and maybe unleashing that child within. I just got visions of Calvin and Hobbes. I don't know why, but let that go as it is. Visit Susan Hensley through her website, susan-hensley.com, for more information about her work. And as always, there's a link in the show notes. If you're seeking insights and advice on how to create a better life for yourself, and if you'd like to dive into self-care, self-development, distant shamanic work, drop me a line, kevin@towardabetterlife.com, for a free discovery call. You can also visit my website, towardabetterlife.com, for past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, and a few products to assist you on that journey. And again, just send all your inquiries to me. And subscribe to the program, Toward a Better Life, through your favorite podcast platform. And review it, if you would please, on Apple and Spotify podcast. It helps to spread the word about the podcast and help, create a better life for everybody. If you have any questions, or if you want to join me on the show, or if you have a story, music, prose, whatever it may be, just send them to me, kevin@towardabetterlife.com. Until next week, enjoy your journey toward a better life.